Thank you, Roberto, for your remarks, and to all of our colleagues and friends in Italy for organizing this event. And exactly as you say, this is a blueprint of what should be happening on a regular basis. This shouldn't just be a one-off where young people turn up, we hear their voices, and then no more happens. I think that's really, really vital. I also want to thank all of you. It is very difficult traveling in these COVID times, and as we've just heard, many of you have made a long and arduous journey, and you're going to have to quarantine when you go home. So thank you so much for making the effort to come. Really, Roberto and I and all the ministers here are really, really very grateful for that. Look, I think we need to be really honest in terms of where we are. We've seen some reports that have come out in the last few weeks from the UNFCCC in terms of where we are in terms of the NDCs, the 2030 emission reductions. We've seen the report from the OECD saying we're not there yet on the money. And the reality is that some countries have come forward with ambition, have come forward with money, but not everyone has. And I think, as Prime Minister Draghi said, what we need to ensure now in this final month, and what I want to do, and what I am pressing every single government to do, for those who have not come forward with ambition in cutting emissions and actions and policies, we need them to do so, right? Including the biggest emitters. And I need your support as part of that process. Tell your governments that we need this coming through now. And the second is the money. The reality is, to deliver a lot of these climate change pledges that are being made by developing countries, they need financial support. You cannot do it without the finance, and that's why the 100 billion is so important. And we are planning obviously a physical event at COP, and isn't it wonderful that we're all able to gather face to face and meet each other? I think that's absolutely wonderful that we're able to do that. And in terms of COP, we've already got over 100 world leaders who've committed to coming. People are registering. But the one thing I've heard loud and clear, just sitting there and listening to the youth delegates coming up to me, is that you want to ensure that there is the right level of youth participation at COP26. We will make that happen. We will make that happen. And the reason for that is that your voices are going to be absolutely vital to this debate. You give us the energy, you give us the momentum and the impetus to act, and quite rightly, you hold a mirror up to world leaders and tell them that what they have done so far isn't good enough collectively, and that's why we need you there. Can I just reflect on the declaration that you put together? I personally think it's great. As Roberto said, we will start that discussion, and obviously that'll continue beyond COP. But what's really important is some of the really concrete plans that you've outlined there is something that ministers are going to have to respond to. And if I just run through, I think what's really remarkable is a lot of what you have discussed is what we have been talking about over the past year and a half as part of our COP deliberations together with Roberto and his colleagues as well. So, the energy transition, absolutely. We need to ensure an energy transition. Of course, it has to be just. I was just having a discussion with one delegate from a country where fossil fuels represents a significant percentage of their economy. Well, if we want people to change, and absolutely we do, we have to support them as part of that just transition so people do have jobs, the economies can grow. That's absolutely vital. You talked about capacity building, absolutely right. And on finance, it isn't just about the 100 billion, it's about ensuring that that money actually reaches projects on the ground. The whole issue about access to finance is vital. And back in March, we brought together a whole range of governments and multilateral agencies, and we set up a task force together with Fiji, and we're going to be launching some pilots in countries ahead of COP, where we want to see whether we can get real sort of work done in terms of improving the access to finance. You've talked about the need for the non-state actors, the business community to step forward. You're seeing some of that through the Race to Zero and the GFANZ work that's been going on. And I think showcasing the impacts and solutions is also going to be absolutely vital, and we'll see some of that at COP. But in terms of how we take this forward, obviously we're going to have this discussion, but what we will also do is at COP itself, our colleagues Roberto and others from the Italian government and ourselves, we will host an event at COP26 to amplify this particular declaration, and this is going to take place on the Youth and Public Empowerment Day on the 5th of November, and that will be an opportunity for ministers to have digested what you have asked for, and then for them to tell you in very concrete terms what we are going to do on an international level, but what is going to happen domestically as well, right? Everything that starts off has got to be local as well as international. So that, for me, is vitally important. And the issue of education, I think, absolutely right. So we are going to bring together the climate and education ministers at COP26. They're going to make climate education pledges. We're going to ensure that that happens. And ultimately, as we move forward, I want this to be the most inclusive COP ever. And that means your voices, the voices of indigenous peoples, the voices of women's groups, people from the global north, global south. Everyone has to be represented. And let me make you this promise, that we will ensure that your voice is heard loud and clear through COP26. And I'm relying on you to help me to get Worleys to deliver on their commitments to cut emissions and on finance. Thank you.